About a year ago, Gearbox released their Pro Power paddle, which redefined how pickleball paddles were made. They started the Gen 3 era and low-key changed how pickleball is being played. But since the Gearbox Pro Power era, I haven't really seen anyone use a Gearbox paddle on the courts. I picked up Gearbox's latest paddle, the GX2, to see if it warrants the lack of attention. They supposedly introduced a new core technology, so let's see if it works. As a reminder, this is more of a first impressions review, not a full review. I played with this paddle for a couple of sessions, so I don't have insight on long-term durability. Shout out Premier Racket Sports for letting me borrow this paddle. Check them out if you're in the Atlanta area. The Gearbox GX2s come in 3 shapes, but I chose to try out the elongated shape since I couldn't get my hands on the standard shape. With Gearbox's new core, they use a bunch of vertical carbon fiber ridges instead of a traditional honeycomb core. This supposedly increases durability and reduces vibrations. My paddle came in at 8 ounces, and after my lead tape setup, it was 8.6. For context, my lead setup was 3 gram strips at 4 and 8 o'clock, and I had a 9 gram flick weight on the bottom. The pop of this paddle is what you would expect from an all-court / power paddle. I didn't have much trouble getting used to it, and putaways and counters were fast if you put a little bit into it. I would say it's a good level of pop, where it's not overly poppy where you can't control it, but enough pop for it to be aggressive. When adding my lead tape setup, I didn't notice any significant change with the pop, which is probably a good thing. In stock form, the sweet spot is good, but has room for improvement. It could be a difference in shape because I normally play with standard shaped paddles, but I did edge hit towards the sides a little more than I would like. I could play relatively well with its stock, but I just found times where I wanted a slightly bigger sweet spot when I'm edge hitting. After my lead setup, it increased the sweet spot to what I would prefer. I was hitting way fewer edge hits and felt like if I got a paddle on it, I could get it back over. However, since it's an elongated paddle, I felt like with my lead tape setup, it was a little bit heavier to flick and move around in general than I'm used to since I use standard shaped paddles. I used to play with a 9-ounce Gearbox Pro Ultimate, so I could probably get used to it, but just compared to what I normally play with nowadays, it did feel heavier. I normally don't talk about feel too much, but for this paddle, we have to talk about it. Your shots are very muted with this paddle, so it's kind of hard to tell how good of a shot you hit. For example, you might reset a ball and it pops up a little higher than you thought. The same goes with other softer shots like drops. Overall, I played relatively well despite the lack of feel, but if you're a player who likes really responsive paddles, this is probably not for you. The power is pretty good on the GX2. I would say it's a low to mid-level power paddle. For comparison, it does hit harder than the True Foam. On serves and returns, it was pretty easy to get them deep. Based on the games I played with it, my drives were pretty effective with this paddle. It does have that amount of power where if you're not careful on drives, returns, and serves, you can have them sail out. I'm not sure why. Maybe I have a preconceived notion that Gearbox equals power from the Pro Power series, but when using this paddle, I tended to go towards a banger style and drive most of my balls. But unlike some other power paddles, I was able to drop with this thing pretty easily without drilling too much. Therefore, I think it's at a good level of power and pop. Overall, I think the GX2 is an underrated paddle given that I never saw it on the court. I think it has good power, yet soft enough for resets and drops. The feel may be too muted for a lot of people, but if you are in that camp who wants a paddle with less vibrations, whether it be tennis elbow or whatever, I think this is the perfect paddle for you. I would be very interested in seeing how the standard shape played, given that this was pretty solid in my opinion. All in all, I think this is a pretty solid paddle and definitely Gearbox's best paddle to date. If you like the Gearbox feel and or a more muted paddle, I think this is worth a shot. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.